Ja, nu ska Maria och jag presentera det här som vi har kallat Lönar det sig att måla båten. Jag kommer att göra en kort introduktion på svenska. Alla bilder kommer att vara på svenska, men Maria känner sig inte riktigt bekväm med att köra hela presentationen på svenska, så hon kommer att prata engelska. Men jag kommer att finnas till hands för att kunna översätta om det är någon som vill ha någon specifik grej ytterligare förklarad. Och samma sak om det blir trassel med frågorna. Så att förhoppningsvis kommer ni att förstå tillräckligt ändå, för huvudinformationen finns i den svenska texten. Så varsågod Maria.
Tack. Okay, is this on? Okay. Hey, so my name is Maria Bighiu. I'm a PhD student at Stockholm University, and I will be talking about an observational study that I've run with my supervisors in October 2 years ago, almost, yeah. So what we've done was to go to 2 boat clubs in Stockholm, and we took biomass samples, like you can see in this picture. So we used rubber scrapers to take between 2 and 8 square decimeters from 102 boats, both sailing boats and motorboats. And we took 7 samples per boat like this because we wanted to know if there's a difference in the amount of fouling on different areas of a boat. And we dried this biomass, and then we weighed it. And then we tried to see if there's a relationship between the amount of fouling that we see and the different treatments that the boats were supposed to have, according to the results that we got from questionnaires. So this is information that we got directly from the boat owners. The main questions included were the type of paint that they used in 2012, if they used a boat washer or not. Thanks. How much they've been sailing, how much time and money they spent working on their boats and cleaning them, how old were the boats, how they were placed in the harbor and in what harbor they've been placed, and how satisfied they were with the aspect of the boat hull when they took up the boats in October. So the main results, we had quite some diversity among our boats. We had quite new ones, 5 years, and quite old ones, up to 85 years. And we had mainly plastic boats, but also some wooden boats. Some people paid almost nothing, 0 crowns, and some people paid up to 6,000 crowns in one season to maintain their boats. And they worked on average 9 hours. And an average growth on all these boats was about 146 grams for a regular 20 square meters boat, which isn't very dramatic if you think about other areas of this planet where it can be a few kilograms. And we found barnacles only on 5 boats. And this graph shows the average fouling on the different sides of the boat. And you can see that on the stern it's much higher than on the starboard or port. And there was no difference between starboard and port. And having this in mind, we also tried to see how the boats were positioned in the port. And we've seen that those which had the stern towards east had the significantly higher fouling than the rest. And it's probably because of the light intensity, which is higher. And those in north had the least. So we could perhaps suggest to keep the boat in this position if it's possible in some harbors. It could help minimize fouling. And as regards the use of a boat washer, we've seen that no matter in what position you keep your boat, if you use the boat washer, you will have less fouling, apparently. But unfortunately, it's been just 22% of the boats that actually use the boat washer. So this is what it looks like. And perhaps the most interesting result regarding the effect of the anti-fouling paints. According to our questionnaires, most people used copper paints, zinc paints, some biocide-free paints, epoxy, for instance. No paint in that season, or they didn't know what paint they used. And out of these copper ones, 36% are not allowed on the East Coast. And just a reminder, this is the area where you're not allowed to have any copper paints, and here you can have up to 8.5%. And the West Coast, because it's higher salinity, so it's a higher problem with fouling, you can have higher concentrations of copper. And the results show that we cannot really see a clear effect of the different type of paints on the fouling. So here we have average fouling, and here we have copper, zinc, epoxy, for instance, and no paint in the season. We also looked at the effect of the actual color of the hull, and we've seen that for some reason blue paints seem to have higher fouling than the rest of the paints. And we think it's because different colors absorb light in different ways. So this can affect the way that algae grow or how larvae are settled. So it could be an idea, if you have a choice, to select a different color, maybe. And it's quite interesting that it was only one boat that was not painted that was blue. So most unpainted boats had a different color. As regards the amount of sailing days, we've seen that these people on average sailed about 14 days in that season, which means that 91% of the time they were just in the harbor. And it is commonly believed that the more you sail, the less fouling you will have. But our study does not really support this theory. As you can see here, people who've been sailing for about 35 days have the same fouling as those who have not been sailing at all. So, yeah. But I must emphasize that all our results are valid for boats that have been sailing in the Stockholm archipelago. So the situation might be different in different areas with different salinities and other conditions. As I said at the beginning, we also asked the boat owners how satisfied they are with their boats. And here you can see the number of boat owners in relation to their answers. So most of them were quite happy. And this is in relation to the amount of fouling. So it seems reasonable. People who had quite little fouling were happiest, I guess. And what we've also done was to select some samples that we dried from the boat and to send them for chemical analysis and see how much copper and zinc it's there. And we've seen that it's about 1 gram maybe of copper and 3 grams of zinc, which means a bit more for a boat club. It's not such big numbers as Britta showed you before, but it's still, this is how much you find only in the organisms that were growing in the boat. And it adds up to the rest, and they will end up in the soil. So, yeah. Some conclusions. It seems that there's no clear effect of the type of paint in the amount of fouling. The use of boat washer gave smaller growth. And it also seems that the position of the boat in the harbor is important in order to minimize fouling. And we've also seen that there is no connection between the number of sailing days and the amount of fouling. And we know that the metals are taken up by the organisms that grow on boats, and then they're scraped off and end up in the soil, and then they contaminate the boatyards. So then we are thinking that perhaps it's not entirely necessary to paint the boats in the Stockholm archipelago, where the salinity isn't so high. So something to think about, maybe. Tack. Questions? Yes. I think it was the front part. By front, I meant both starboard and port put together, it was less than on the backside. Like if you would divide, like I tried to group this like front, middle, end. So this was lowest. No, actually, this was like medium, this was lowest, and this was highest part, for some reason.
Do you know, you have that difference between blue and white and black?
Yes.
Could be something that is not showing the reality, because the reality is that the dark colors are on the west coast the west coast paint that's that are used here. So I don't know. Do you know what colors, what types of metal were in those? It could be different.
Yes,
With blue, with black.
absolutely. It's different active ingredients in them.
So it could be just of the types of colors.
Yeah.
That's what I have. So you haven't analyzed that?
We have analyzed them together, of course, because different colors have different main ingredients. Where was it? Yes.
Truth is that the most used West Coast color here, it changes to black.
Could be, but
And it could be the best color.
yeah, I'm not saying the contrary. It's just that referring to this 102 boats that we looked at, most of the blue ones were zinc-based, so they weren't West Coast.
But you're meaning unpainted boats.
No, I mean, these are in total. This is just looking at the color.
Yeah, the color.
Yes, without the actual, yes. But we try to see if there's a connection between them also.
Man kan väl säga att om vi ska lägga till det så jag kan få flytta mig hit då. Om man tittar på ett samband mellan vad färgen innehöll och den faktiska kulören så att säga, så kan man se att det finns en väldigt tydlig tendens mot att de blå avviker oavsett vad de ska ha innehållit. Och som sagt, endast en av de blå var så kallad giftfri färg. Så att det, ja, vi tycker att det är någonting som är värt att titta mer på.
Ja. Svarta är för färg. Det är för att tydliggöra svenska. Det är svarta vi borde titta mer på. För att den färg som är mest populär, om vi ska vara ärliga här i den här salen, på ostkusten och som många anser är absolut den överlägsnaste färgen, den är svart i sjön. Men det är västkustfärg. Så är det.
Ja, men
Och det påverkar ju resultatet.
ja, självklart. Men vad vi också enligt båtägarna så kan vi säga att de som säger sig ha använt färg utan gift, så ingår de med lika stora delar ungefär i den vita och den svarta gruppen.